All right, so I'm going to go through the assignment and basically just give you a number of tips that all of us find helpful when we're dealing with PowerPoints and with this kind of presentation. So first thing first, it's always better to keep it simple and not have super overloaded slides. So a great way to keep your audience attention is to keep your text down, because if they're reading a bunch of writing, they're not paying attention and engaging with you. You don't want to have too many bullet points. Sometimes you see a slide with like 20 bullet points. Again, they're going to be reading. Full paragraphs, also a no, because full paragraphs, they're reading, they're not looking at you. And while you can use 20 slides for this presentation, I think 5 to 10 slides is all you need, because all you have is 6 to 8 minutes, and it's easy to go over that time if you overdo it on slides. Visual tips, clip art. A lot of us see, sort of the same clip art picture, the guy with the big thumbs up. I try to avoid that because it's boring. We've seen it a lot. Now, you may see some fun clip art out there that we haven't seen a ton of times, and then I say, great, use it. But also think about high quality graphics, photographs. There's so many great libraries of free photos out there. Your professors have probably already been sending around some places to find those. Animation. Animation is also great. That's like when you see each bullet point go up in a row as the person clicks on them, things like that. Movement in the slide. That's fun. I wouldn't do it every slide because it starts to feel almost a little bit like you're seasick or something. There's just a little too much movement, so you want to avoid that. Templates. Templates are great, but again, it's like the clip art. Sometimes we've just seen them too much. So I tell people it's okay. Play around with the features when you open up PowerPoint. You're going to notice when you go into PowerPoint that there's even a tour you can take of PowerPoint just to look at the new features. You can use your own colors, pick out which colors you want to use. If your company already has one that you can use and it's professional looking, feel free to use that. That can look great too as well for your presentation. Text. Try to make your titles stand out. I like mine centered, but it can depend on where the information is on your slide. For your font, a lot of times, some of you have probably seen this. You look up and you see this PowerPoint and the font's like, it's really pretty, but it's really hard to read. So stick with something easy to read, something you're used to writing papers in that looks nice and stands out, but is easy to read. As a rule, what you see here, dark text on a light background is the easiest thing to read. What's harder to read is light text on a dark background. Now, I'm going to tell you there's exceptions, and it's my students who've proven me wrong. If you play around with the colors, then you don't have to go with that dark text on a light background popping out. Sometimes you can find something that's the reverse that looks great, but you want to play around with it. You want to record it for a minute or two and see how it looks when you're playing it back. Think of it as being the audience watching it and make sure you can read it. Center alignment, like the title text here. Center alignment looks great for titles, but it's hard to read and for your actual content on the slide. The reason for that is that's just not how we read. We read things left aligned. So what I tell people is if you're using just a quote on a page or just a few words, it's totally fine to put it wherever you want that makes sense visually in the slide. But if you have a slide like the one you're looking at now and it's more text heavy, I would align it to the left just for an easier read. Graphics and audio. I'm going to go back to PowerPoints that everyone here has seen. I think some of you have probably been at a meeting and you've seen charts and graphs and things thrown up on the screen and you have no idea what they mean. They're visually kind of neat, but they don't really make sense. And sometimes the speaker doesn't even explain them well. So I love charts. I love graphs. What we want to remember is everybody learns differently. So when we provide different ways of learning during a presentation, we get everyone's attention. But we want to make sure that those visual aids are clear and easy to understand. Same goes for videos and audio. These things can be great, but you want to keep the clips short. You've only got 6 to 8 minutes. Your audience is not there to watch someone else. They're there to watch you. Same thing with random sounds. And let me explain what that means. So I had a student who did a wonderful presentation about a bird sanctuary, about a nonprofit for a bird sanctuary. And there were bird sounds at the beginning. At least I thought they were going to just be at the beginning. And that was really neat because you're just seeing the title slide and it's a beautiful picture of nature and you're hearing birds. But then the bird sounds didn't get turned off. And so the whole presentation, it was very distracting because you're hearing like bird chirps while you're trying to focus. And that's not great. Same thing with music. It can be really fun to start a piece with music and end a piece with music. You don't want to forget to turn it off and to be talking over the music, because again, that becomes very disruptive. Order of information. Much like we thought about last week when we're writing the memos, what's your hook? How are you going to reel your audience in from the start? So we're going to be talking about that more and more this week and next week. Like, are you going to tell a story? Are you going to ask a question? Are you going to throw up a really interesting and stunning statistic? What are you going to do right off the bat to get your audience interested? And think about, for the rest, when I talk about, which a lot of you have heard me talk about again and again, outlining, I always sit down with a stack of note cards and I outline a presentation. I put on the note cards, I'll even draw in like, I want to have a picture on this slide, or maybe I want to have a graph or chart on a different one. And I do that because when I have the note cards in front of me, I can move them around and I can think about the order and flow of the information that I want to present. So pace. For this, your PowerPoint slides are your script. They are going to guide you through what you have to say. So you can write a script based on them, or you can just use them as your script, which I think is great. That way you're not reading, and you can practice by clicking through your PowerPoint slides. Think about your pace as you make new important points in your presentation. The audience must have time to take those in. And that's where we talk about a lot. People in my class have probably heard this too many times, but I talk about the power of the pause. It is important, just like when we write, I tell you guys write short sentences and write long sentences and change up that pace because it keeps a reader engaged. It is the same thing with your audience. You want to make new points, you want to pause. Sometimes you want to speed up, sometimes you want to slow down. Also, don't rush if you get to a slide that has more text. Your audience will be reading it, even if you don't want them to read all of it because you're saying it. So give them some time to. And remember that you can also pace that by using visuals. The more visuals you have, the less time they're spending reading. I had a student once turn in a deck for this assignment, 5 slides. That was it. Every slide was a very vivid photograph image. Some slides had one word. Most slides had no words. I was incredibly focused on him and on his presentation and the energy he was exuding while I was seeing him on the screen, and I was not reading a thing. But those images were allowing me to really tie in what he was saying. If you ask a question, it's great in a presentation, but give your audience time to think for a moment. And if it's appropriate at the end, which, you know, is less pertinent for what we're doing, but just so you guys know, Q&As are great to have at the end. That's when you get out that extra information you didn't get to during your actual presentation. Tone. Tone of your voice is super important. And here's a little trick that I think came from maybe Colette. And it was to take a picture of a family member or a friend and to paste it next to your webcam. If you have trouble being relaxed when you speak and sounding like you're speaking with a friend or colleague, put a picture of them up. And that will actually help you to relax a bit. Whatever you do, don't be monotone and speak the same way through the whole thing. You just want to be really natural. For instance, Sir Richard, I'm trying to think, maybe it was James. One of them used to actually pretend to be at a dinner party and to speak to friends. I have another colleague who pretends that she is speaking with her boss, who she has a really good natural relationship with. So it's whoever you can think of that you can speak just in a way that you would speak at work, but to someone that you're close to. One thing about film is we go really flat on film. We sound more monotone when we're being recorded. We don't look as engaged. It's okay to be more enthusiastic, to almost over-emote a little bit when you're doing this recording. Don't go overboard, but you can bring that enthusiasm in, and it works really well. Layout. So you have to remember in this, we're going to see your PowerPoint slide. We're also going to see you in a box in the corner presenting. And here's what's important about that box. Don't make the box too small. If that box is too small, you can actually just make it bigger, which you want to do, and you can move it wherever you want in your presentation so you're not cutting off your slides. It could be in the top right corner. It could be in the bottom right corner. You can make it a little larger. If it's too small, we can't see you. And if we can't see you as your professors, we can't really judge your body language and your energy. So just make sure to make it large enough we can see it and see you, and think about just what you thought about in your first presentation. Lighting. If you're in a dark room, throw some desk lamps on the floor to get some up lighting. Think about your background being simple so we look at you. Professional, no clutter. You want to look professional because you're going to feel more confident. You're going to look great as you're being recorded. Cut down on noise if possible. We know once in a while a kid runs through somewhere in the house. I certainly have that all the time. Or your cat meows somewhere. If there's one cat meow and it's your best take of 5, use that one anyway. But if there's a lot of noise, then shoot another one. I live in DC. I have motorcades go through sometimes when I'm recording. I have to toss those recordings and start over. So just pay attention as you're picking your best one to background noise. And think about your computer. If your computer is a desktop, you may have trouble, unless it's a small one, lifting it up so it's more at eye level, moving it around. I've put computers on boxes before. It works great. But if it's, if you can't move it, just push back a bit from the computer. Let us see that way your body language and your energy. If you are a slumper, move your body, push your chair back, move your body towards the edge of your chair. This will naturally move your back and your shoulders. Your open posture will really engage your audience. If you have a laptop and you can move it around, do that. It's great. Move it up, step back, stand, because we're really going to see your energy that way. I want you to be really, really careful of moving chairs. If you use a swivel chair, and I used to, and it was terrible, you will, even if you don't mean to, you're going to move that chair around. And so the whole time you're recording, we're going to see you swaying a little bit, and it's really distracting. So make sure, move back and away. Don't put your computer on your lap. Same thing, it'll start moving around. You won't mean it to. You won't even probably notice it until you watch the recording and you're upset because you did such a great take and you have to toss that one. Recording. Practice. Now by practice, I mean practice about that many times. I had a student one term who recorded like 64 times. We do not expect that. You already did this early in the term. You're good. Shoot a few times. Robert always tells us, which is a great tip, record yourself when you're practicing. See how it looks. Are you framed well when you record and watch yourself back? Do you like your posture? How's the room look? Is it lit? Are your slides looking good? You can check all those things that way, but don't go overboard. Don't record this more than, say, 3 to 6 times. That's plenty. Think of the tips of the greats. Go on YouTube, watch some great presenters speak, and you will really get some great tips just by watching them. I love that. I find it's a great way to watch the pose, the body language, the hand gestures. It's a great way to learn. Nerves, things to do for nerves. A lot of us have them when we speak. Deep breaths. I didn't put this one in here, but make sure to drink some water before you speak. Make sure to practice. Get your mouth moving before you speak. I make this mistake all the time. I get the script. I'm so excited. I've written up what I want to say. I practice it, but I'm practicing it in my head. I'm forgetting to practice it with my mouth. And then my mouth is dry. I haven't been talking enough and I sound terrible. I stumble more. So I always make sure to practice aloud a couple times. The photo of the family trick. Some people like to exercise a bit before they speak. They get that adrenaline up, but they also relax a bit. Standing helps with nerves. If you're nervous, it's going to ground you more. It's just naturally going to give you more energy. The lungs are more open. Keep your shoulders back, and you're going to be able to take those deep breaths in. Breaking rules. My rule is that breaking rules is better than being boring if you're going to do a presentation. So try something new, have fun, stretch yourself. If you are a seasoned presenter and you present a lot, try something new. Do you always start with a story? Maybe start with a funny story this time. Do you always show a statistic? Well, then don't show a statistic. Ask a question or start with the story. Switch around what you do, try out something new, and stretch yourself a bit with this and have fun. If you do, you're really going to enjoy it. And most importantly, pick a topic that you have passion about. Because if you have passion about this topic, we're going to see that. It's going to shine through. So some things to remember this week. We are opening up areas for you to share your slides in most classes. You can also share them if there's not an area in your discussion board. You can post them right in the Ask Your Professor area and share them, but your professor will let you know where you can do that. It's optional. I think it's fun to share slides in week 8 or week 9. You get tips from your peers. You get some fun ideas. Plus, most of your presentation is done then. All you need to do is record next week. Again, 6 to 8 minutes. This is just what you did before. Use Zoom. 20 slides or less. I recommend 5 to 10 slides. If you get your slides out of the way this week, send them over to a coach. Then you have time to record, and then you can even send the recording over to the coach if you want and get some feedback. But remember, the entire presentation, and that's just your MP4 file that you downloaded from Zoom, that is due Sunday midnight of your time in week 9. In week 10, a number of the professors, we like to open up an optional sharing place. If you want to, you can share assignments 1 and or 3 with your peers. When Jack was working on the redesign of this class, he wanted everyone to see their first presentation and their last presentation of the term. He said a number of us would probably laugh at the, wow, like that's what I put together for one, and look where I've come now. And if not, we would at least still feel good about the journey of week 3 to week 9. So it's a fun thing to do with your class. Here's numbers for contact, and let me just make sure the mics are on for the professors. Is there anything any of our professors that are here would like to add about their tips for this presentation before we go into the Q&A?
Yes,
Hi, Kirsten. It's Colette. How are you doing?
Good. Mercy, was that you?
Go ahead and let Colette go.
Okay, perfect. Colette, you go, and then we'll let Mercy go right after you. Go ahead.
All right. Sorry about that, Mercy. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Start at the same time.
So I just had a few. I mean, Kirsten did a great job covering everything. I just had a few suggestions. Number one, and I'll just say them quickly. Number one, don't forget about the nonverbal communication skills. We'll be talking a little bit about that later on, well, in the next couple of weeks. But, as you focus on, you spend a lot of time focusing on your slides and what you're going to say, don't forget about the importance of using your arms and hands conversationally and just your body language in general. You just want to make sure that it is congruent with what it is that you're saying and use it to your advantage. So that's one thing. 2 other small points. Think about standing. I think standing gives you energy and your audience feeds off that energy. So think about that. And then, of course, if appropriate, I think it's always a good idea to smile because I think that builds trust and rapport with your audience. So those are my thoughts. The only other thing I'll say is just think about this as if you are having a good conversation. And that's what I have.
I'm so glad you said smile. I can't believe I forgot that one. It's always one of my favorites. It doesn't have to be like a really big smile, guys. It's just like a warm smile at the beginning and at the end.
Yeah.
Certainly if you use humor. I've seen people use humor, and the entire reason the joke falls flat is that they don't smile. And you're kind of going like, was it to smile there? Or if I smile, will I seem like the only one in the audience that thought that was funny? So just, just remember what Colette said, just a nice, personable, touch to connect with your audience. Thanks, Colette. Those are so great.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mercy.
Yeah, I was going to mention that. I was going to mention a couple things that Colette did, but thank you, Colette.
Yes, you're welcome, Mercy.
Smiling at the beginning and smiling at welcoming people and then at your audience, and then also at the end telling them thank you or goodbye, thank you for listening or whatever, always is a good touch, and it relaxes you and it relaxes your audience. Mm-hmm. So I think that's very important. But I wanted to talk about something that seems to be a problem with my past students that I noticed, and that's the placement of your camera. Many people use the desk and then they pull away a little bit and you can see the top of their bodies. I think when you stand, you don't have to see your whole body, you can just see the waist up, but I think a proper placement of the camera will allow you to look at the camera eye, and your audience then thinks you're looking at them. But if you look down on your screen and you look at yourself, or if your camera is too high or too low, it will cause you to look down.
Yes.
And I think that's a real consideration. And people are just flying, and then I don't see their eyes. Their eyes are looking down because of the placement of so I'd like to mention that. And that was about it. I think Colette covered everything else that I can think of. Oh, I had one more thing about conversation. I've had a few students in the past that were very nervous about the camera, but were used to presenting to a live audience and didn't bother them. Mm-hmm. But it did bother them to present to a camera. So what I did for them and what worked very well for them, and what I'm also suggesting to my students who are on this recording here or in this audience, is that I'm the one that's going to be looking. I'm the one that's going to be evaluating you. Have a conversation with me like you do on the phone. Remember, it's me. Now, I have one particular student that has chosen a fabulous topic, which is a video interview with slides, because they're beginning to do that now. They're beginning to ask people to present themselves on a recording for interviewing some companies. And so I suggested to her that might be something, because she was talking about interviewing in the future, near future. And she could, do her all qualifications and talk about herself. And what I asked her to do was to make believe that I was the person that was interviewing, but it was me, and she knows me. Because if you're yourself and you're comfortable with who you're speaking to, I think you do a much better job on this assignment. So just remember, we're the only.
I love the remembering that you really are the audience. Well, the slides need to be for the bigger audience of whoever they're imagining to really, because your students know you already. So that makes such a nice connection to relax.
And imagine that I am one of those people. Like I'm the person interviewing you, but I'm me.
That's great.
You know me. So that makes the person feel more comfortable with a camera.
Yeah.
But it was very strange to find that out, and I don't know if you've had that experience, Colette and Kirsten, about students telling you they're comfortable speaking in public, but they're not comfortable with their camera.
Definitely.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because it's, I had a student describe it last time as like, when there are people there, he can feed off the energy of the other people there, and he can read his audience,
right,
because he's there and they're there. And then when he's talking into the camera, there's nobody there. So it's awkward, he said. He couldn't feel the same energy. He couldn't read things in the same way. And that's where that over-emoting I was talking about comes from, because it's hard when there's not another person to connect to. It makes it tough, and that's what's nice about being able to at least practice with Zoom, that we can record it a few times. We can make sure that that's not happening, which is good. And I love your tip. And Colette, wasn't that your tip about the picture of a family member or a friend?
Yeah, because like you were saying, it's you don't have the benefit of feeding off of the audience's energy. So you want to bring the emotion, that you would have if you were actually speaking in front of somebody. So yeah, that was something that I thought was really helpful, just kind of thinking about or bringing about that emotion of somebody, you know, a loved one or a colleague or somebody you really like, and sort of make it so that it seems like you're talking to them.
Yes.
Yes.
It's a conversation.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Marcy.
Yeah, it's a conversation, and I think one of the tips that I'm going to talk about tonight in my class huddle, we're going to have an open discussion around this. It's one of the tips is something I found in my research for this particular assignment. It was a famous actor, and I can't even think of his name right now, but it's a famous actor, and they asked him when he got done, they asked him, well, you did such a superb job, and he said, I don't think I can repeat it. And they said, well, what do you mean? And he said, because I lost myself in the part. Wow. And what I found is if I look at the camera eye after I practiced a lot, or at a picture right above the camera eye, or something around the camera eye, because if you don't, then your eyes are going to wander. Yeah. You have to focus, whether it's a picture or something. And if I look up there, and I have my notes around there somewhere, or a teleprompter, or whatever it is I have, if it's around there, after I've practiced several times, I lose myself so much that I ad-lib. Do you ever find that? And that makes it more natural.
It does, yeah, absolutely. I used to put a laptop on a ladder, like in the
That's what I do.
And then I would stick one of my kids' poster boards. I'd steal one of their, like, you know, science project poster boards, and I would just write myself a few notes, like almost like a very brief outline, and I'd stick it, like, you know, masking tape it to the wall, but up behind my screen. I mean, you got to get creative. I've built things to hold things out of my kids' Legos before when I'm shooting on a phone. You just, like, have fun with it, play with it, see how it looks. And yeah, creating that. And Pam just said, I love this. She said, even just posting pictures of people around your camera, creating your own audience. You could do that. You could stick it on the wall if you're using, you know, anything. Works.
Yeah, that's a great tip.
You know?
Kirsten, can I add something?
Yeah, go ahead, Michelle.
So you guys did an excellent job of covering everything, and there's not much more to add in there, but one of the things that I always focus on is students having a really strong and clear voice, and, you know, making sure they have good but yet clear vocabulary. A lot of students, you know, reach out and say, I want to sound smart when I'm talking about it, and I always just say to them, talk to the audience as if they don't have that previous knowledge. So using big words isn't necessarily going to benefit the understanding in the end.
I love that, Michelle. And I always say too, like, define terms. Don't assume your audience knows what you're talking about, but instead be clear about what those things are. And don't have the barking dog, like I just thank you for showing another. Don't do that. But yeah, I mean, I think you're so right that sometimes, and I see that in writing too. And that's why I always tell people, like, read your stuff aloud, go through the stuff before you record it or film it, or when you write it. You got to get a sense that you're talking to a real person, and not sounding like a thesaurus, because no one's going to connect or relate to you.
Right.
Hey, Kirsten,
Yes,
I have a couple tips.
Sure.
Okay, but really, just have fun with it if you can. Don't make it so you're so stressed, because no one is really seeing you but your professor. We've already mentioned that, unless you show it to anyone else. And I encourage you, you know, again, to work with your communication coach on this assignment, because they can really help you. And when we have that support, we feel less stressed. And also, remember, you aren't going to be perfect. You know, most of us aren't. Kirsten mentioned looking at a family picture, which Colette reminded us of. And then most of us also shared a video of us presenting to a dog. I think there was a video about that. I watched it. I thought it was hilarious. But what I do is I try to imagine who my audience is when I'm looking into the camera. So with my weekly videos that I create for my classes, I'm considering that all my students are looking at me right through the camera. And it's really helpful. It sets my demeanor and my tone and helps me to relax. So if you're planning to present at work, imagine exactly who's going to be in your audience as you're looking into the camera. And remember, this is an assignment that's displaying you presenting as if you were at work or somewhere. So consider how you're going to be dressed, even though we'll only be able to see you in a little box. Because last term, I had a student who literally just got out of the shower. Her hair was wet, and she was in workout clothes.
Oh.
And I knew this because the laptop was sitting right up on her lap, as I could tell this by the way the video was. It was shaky. So she just really just got out of the shower, sat on her couch, opened her laptop, and did the recording, and it was shaky. So also, if you are living with others, Kirsten mentioned dogs and cats and birds, you just might want to inform maybe your spouse or your children or your roommate. Let them know ahead that you're recording so that you won't be interrupted. Because again, last term, a student's husband walked in and she looked back at him and told him to be quiet, then went right back to recording. She submitted that one. Just a couple more tips, because as you guys were going through this, I was envisioning some of the submissions I had from last term, and I'm going, oh my gosh, you got to mention this. So, but review your recording, because I also had a student who didn't realize the camera was still recording, or I guess she didn't, because she was caught blowing her nose at the end and she didn't review it and submitted that. So when I thought she was all done, there she is blowing her nose in the camera. You know, and make sure to upload an MP4 file. And the last is to try and keep it to 6 to 8 minutes length, like it says in the instructions, because if you go over, and I had students do 20-some minutes because they just rambled on and on, they weren't very succinct.
Part of the rubric for that. So if you're going way up, grade is going way down. So
those are my points that I was recalling as you were going through it. So
JB, you made me think of two really good ones. One's just a funny one, and one was which I may have told at our first workshop, but I had a student that one time who wore his bathrobe, very similar to your shower one, and I'm like going, why are you in your bathrobe? Like, unless the presentation is about this bathrobe and you're selling it to me and I'm going to hear a lot about this bathrobe, I don't want to see you in your bathrobe. Not professional.
Exactly.
And then the other you said, which I thought it resonated so much with me, is it's never perfect. When someone was teaching me to record, he said to me, when you go through, if you stumble somewhere in your best take, we all stumble. It's not a big deal. And it reminded me of something. When I was a child, I played classic piano and I did all the, recitals and stuff. And a really great instructor said to me, if you make a mistake and you play through it and you keep going, 99% of the people in the audience will not notice. But if you pause and you break and you stumble over it and make a big deal out of it, everyone's going to notice. And I try to remember that pretty much in all aspects of my existence. It's a great thing. And it will help you with presenting. Just keep going. No one cares. And if in the recording you don't pronounce a word right or you stumble, great. The next recording, you're just going to do it with another word. So don't worry about it. Just keep moving, and then we won't notice that much at all, if at all. So great. Thank you so much, Jamie. Those were so great.
You're welcome.
And then Kirsten, you have a couple from Tara about tutorials and Zoom.
Perfect. So let's make sure everyone here by phone sees that too. So Tara, thanks, Mercy. She was asking about whether or not there's a tutorial on the actual use of Zoom. And absolutely there is. Dr. Taylor has made a video for us. It walks you through what you need to do for this assignment. And it is in week 9. When you scroll down, you can click right on it. It even has sample videos, so you can see what people have done before and get a sense of them. So that's just go to your content, go into week 9 and scroll down towards the bottom and you'll find it. It's a super tutorial. And then let me just see if I think we got through. Yep, everyone, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to take everybody off mute. If you aren't asking a question, please go ahead and self-mute yourself. But does anyone have any other questions they want to throw in the chat box or ask before we break for the day? Any other questions?
I have a question.
Sure, go ahead.
The video
Mhm.
that's going to be incorporated with the slide presentation, are we able to manipulate the camera or the position of the are we able to manipulate positioning of the video, or do we need to adjust our slides to fit the video in that one spot continuous?
No, you can actually move the box around. So this is what I tell people. The box, so like this is the big screen with your PowerPoint, and you're in like a little box, and you can actually move that box around. So for instance, maybe you decide I'm going to put it in the bottom corner. So you want to be aware when you're doing your slides, I'm not going to stick any pictures or anything over there, that it would interrupt. And what you want to do is do one run through that you record and look at, and make sure you like where the box is and it's not cutting stuff off, because if it is, you can just move some stuff around on your slide so we can still read it. And I've seen people that don't do that run through. And what they end up doing is they turn in slides and they don't move their box and they don't make it big and they don't think about it, and they cut off like every title on every page or something like that. So yeah, absolutely. You can move it. You can size it how you like. It's super easy to do. You literally just drag it and move it. It's great that way. And you can pick the size of the box. So that'd be really helpful. Great question. Thank you. Also, Pam said, since you're in the audience, can we use our professor's name? Absolutely. You can use our name. You can call out the names of imaginary people we don't know. I've had people definitely like talk to their audience when they're doing it, ask them a question. You absolutely can do that. That's a great question, Pam. Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
I have a suggestion.
Sure, absolutely.
Well, because of my military background and because we were always thrown into the fire, you never really got time to prepare for giving a class or anything. The one thing that I know that helped me when I was young giving those classes was using inflection. If you use inflection in your voice, it kind of, I don't want to say it intimidates the audience, but it demands their attention, and then it kind of shakes the nerve off you when you use inflection.
That's great. That's great. Great recommendation. Absolutely. Yeah, control of your voice for some people, it's absolutely why they're powerful presenters. And just like you say, they can really grab their audience, and in a way it is forceful, but like that's okay. And you're right, it can also really ground you when you're speaking. So thank you so much. That's such great recommendations. Thanks.
I have one last tip. I have one tip, Kirsten. Just one last tip.
Sure.
I don't know why students do this, but it's like they practice, and they say, I've got it. And then they submit it and they don't review their last one.
Yeah.
I guess they're excited because they feel like they did a good job. Yeah. But always review before you submit. Yeah. Because then you'll catch some of the things that we've been talking about, that students do. It's, oh my gosh, that's the way I look. Oh, I didn't realize that was in the back or whatever. And you want to do your best because this is worth a lot of points. So we want you to do your best.
Absolutely.
So I think it's best to always review before you submit.
And I did that before, Mercy, but where the thing is, like when you're setting up and recording and you're doing it, it's not hard to do another take. But I remember recording once and I'd done like 6 takes and I was like, oh, this one's great. And I walked away and I didn't even think about it. And right before I had to actually share the video, I looked at it and something had happened with the recording and it was terrible. Like it was on delay and it was fuzzy. And I'm like, it's very hard to like then have to go reset up yourself, get yourself in that mode, So just like Mercy says, make sure to check it, know you're really done, and then submit it. Don't assume it's okay. Because, yeah, I had a student do that in assignment 1. There was no volume. You couldn't hear anything. But he hadn't recorded it. And it's tough to have to then go back a week later, and reshoot it. So that's a great tip. Thank you so much. Anybody else before we close? All right, I'm going to stick around a couple minutes in case anybody thinks of something last minute they want to ask about. Everybody have a happy Thanksgiving. Travel safely if you're traveling. And don't hesitate. Reach out to your professor if you have questions. Share those slides on the boards or share them with a coach if you want some feedback. We're all happy to help. Thanks so much. Take care, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. Thanks, Deidre. That was such great stuff for us. Thank you, June, for coming. Thanks, LaShondra.
Thanks, Kirsten.
Thanks to all the professors. Thanks, Pentone.
Thank you.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Pam, thanks.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Ideas. Thank you, Parul, for coming.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you, and happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Take care.
Hi, Kirsten. Have a good day.
Bye, have a wonderful time with the family.
Oh, I will. I'm already cooking.
I gotta start cooking now. I got too many boys. They're gonna eat everything in my house.
Oh, I know. I got a phone call from my daughter-in-law. She says, "Mean, can you just change it and not bring black beans and rice and bring my favorite macaroni and cheese that you make?" And I went, "The 4 pounds of black beans are soaking."